very much. I now turn to my very good friend, distinguished ranking member of the Rules Committee, Mr. McGovern, for any questions he may have.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say, Mr. Joyce, everybody doesn't believe, as you said, that walls work. They don't. And in fact, we know that. Mr. Cuellar just talked to you about how people are getting around it. Mr. Burgess just talked about how cartels are sophisticated and finding ways around it. So if we want to talk about border security, we ought to have a conversation about that. But let's have a conversation about border security, but let's have it in 2023, not 23 BC, when walls were the only thing that worked. And let's talk about things that actually keep the border secure, and not simply things that make Donald Trump happy. And I think that's what this is happening here. And Mr. Diaz-Balart, I think we all share the view that North Korea is a bad player, but I was wondering where all my friends were when Donald Trump made the statement that about Kim Jong-un, that we fell in love. There was no pushback about that, or all the pro-Putin statements, and all the the bowing to Russia. In any event, but let me just say that this is an exercise in futility. That this is not real what we're doing here. I mean, and let me just put some facts on the table. This is a statement of administration policy on H.R. 4365, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2024. And it says if the President were presented with H.R. 4365, he would veto it. Here's the statement of administration policy on H.R. 4368, the Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration and Related Agencies Appropriation Act of 2024. If the President were presented with H.R. 4368, he would veto it. Let me read to you the statement of administration policy on H.R. 4367, the Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Act of 2024. If the President were presented with H.R. 4367, he would veto it. Let me read you the statement on administration policy on H.R. 4665, the Department of State Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriations Act of 2024. If the President were presented with H.R. 4665, he would veto it. And there's lots of explanations and lots of detail on why he would veto it. So we know the President would veto these bills, all right? Now let me ask you a question. Have any of you been given assurances from the United States Senate, the appropriators or the Senate minority leader or majority leader, that if, assuming we pass the rule next week, which is, we can't assume that in this place anymore, but assuming we actually take these up, have you been given an assurance that the Senate will take these up? Anybody?
I've had the opportunity to talk with my Senate counterparts, and we all believe that the issues at the border are very important, and you can't believe for a moment that we're going to continue to sustain the deaths we have.
That wasn't my question. My question was, do we have an assurance that they will take up their version and that there's time to negotiate the differences between the House and Senate by next Saturday?
Well, I don't have an assurance from them, but we can't get there unless we pass these bills and start the conversation. But I do want to take issue with the Border Patrol, Chief of the Border Patrol, who does believe that walls will keep people out, and it does detain people from the flow from coming here. And so I have to rely on experts who are actually in the field to do that.
Yeah, and I was a history major in college. I don't know of any wall that someone hasn't climbed over, dug under, or gone through. But anyway, the time for this kind of detailed conversation about this, as we right before, it's not right before a shutdown. It was in June. And we could still have that conversation in more detail, but we need to get a continuing resolution passed so we don't shut the government down. Mr. Diaz-Balart.
No, thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. Always a pleasure. So I also have had conversations, and as you know, that the process is, Senate will do their part, we do our part, and we go to conference. So this is why I'm very optimistic that then you will vote this rule forward so we can start that process. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate your response, but that doesn't answer my question. I'm just trying to deal. We know that the administration is going to veto these bills. I think we pretty much know that these are dead on arrival in the United States Senate. So there's lots of big differences here. So assuming that all of the bills were passed, there's still some bills that haven't been marked up in appropriation?
There are 2 bills that haven't been on to full committee yet. That's the
So those
labor
are-
HHS and CJS.
So
is not.
we can't even consider those in rules yet, right? Because they haven't come out of Appropriations Committee. So the idea that all of these bills are going to be passed, the Senate's going to do their thing, we're going to negotiate all the differences to get everybody so that we're all in agreement on major policy issues, lots and lots of policy issues. That's just not real. We all know that. So I don't know if this is the price, for, maybe we'll ask some of the people who've been voting against the rules when they testify whether or not, they will vote for a CR if we go through this exercise next week. I think my answer, no. So it's like, what are we doing here? This doesn't make any, I don't quite get this. We have no issue, I mean, so can I just ask, does anybody, do you favor a government shutdown?
No, sir, I wasn't elected to shut down the government. I was here to make it work on behalf of the American people.
Mr. Diaz-Balart, do you favor a shutdown?
I echo his words.
I didn't hear you, what?
He echoes his.
I'm sorry, I echo
okay, all right.
Chairman Joyce's words, so no.
Okay. So, all right, and none of us on the Democratic side want to shut down, so why are we negotiating bills that can actually make it to the president's desk and get signed into law? And in the short term, why are we negotiating around a continuing resolution, knowing that a week from Saturday, the government shuts down, and we don't have a draft of anything? And I just don't understand, like why we're doing this here. Anyway, I will just say one thing on a lighter note. It's good to see Cesar Gonzalez here, who worked on the Rules Committee with your brother, Lincoln, when he was here, and I'm sure he was thrilled when he got a chance to get off the Rules Committee, but then he's back here, having to listen to all of this. The Rules Committee has a way of sucking people back in. But does Mr. Lauro or Mr. Quaid, anything you wanted to add, or are we all set?
I think we're all set.
Yeah,
We're ready to move.
yeah,
As one of the four corners, House, Senate, and that ready to sit down anytime, any place, which we've done in the past.
Yeah, if this were a serious effort, I would have Mr.
If I may, Mr. Rankin, thank you for highlighting Cesar Gonzalez. Because as you know, we can never do our jobs without the staff that we have, all of the staff, and I think Cesar is one of the finest. So just, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned staff, and of course, particularly mentioning Cesar Gonzalez, who's exceptional. So I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
And I just hope that by mentioning him in a positive way, I didn't get him fired. Yeah, I would just say, if this were a serious undertaking right now, I mean, I'd have a ton of questions on both of these bills, because we already had our hearings on the other two bills, but it's not. And so let's get on with this and whatever. I yield back.
Thank you very much. I just want to assure my friend that we consider Mr. Gonzalez part of the continuing adult supervision for the Diaz-Balart brothers. And so I think his position's probably secure. I do have a quick question for my friend. Did you submit these statements for the record?
I ask unanimous consent they be submitted for the record.
Without objection.